My Gavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I am Arika Galajerthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome back to Divide and Conquer as we give you the Umbar faction overview. Now, two things. First of all, my voice is a little croaky as it's first thing in the morning. And secondly, lots of changes have gone on in the past week, and especially the past 2 days, in fact. This is being recorded on the 15th of April. And an outrageous amount of changes have gone into the mod. And something I just want to warn you first of all with Umbar is when you load Umbar up now, or in version 2.0, apologies that these are a half and half kind of recording, half and half overview. But when you load up Umbar in version 2.0, at turn number 1, you will note that Harad only has Finer Bell. However, by the time that you've ended turn and it's gone to turn number 2, they will have Ramlond and they'll have what you can see here. Now, there is actually no physical way that an Umbarim general can make it to any of these towns to begin sieging it, only to then find out Harad have taken it, so it shouldn't affect you unless you're cheating. So don't worry, when you do come to play version 2, that was a bit of a bug. And allow me to also just address that I am aware that, unfortunately, what you're going to see in the coming videos, so Harad, Canned, Rune, and I'll probably redo Bree, is that you're going to see changes that are not currently in your game. And I can only apologise for that, because I don't want to have 3 of these builds, and it then makes the video relevant going forward as well. So what you're seeing at the moment is the work towards version 2. And as I say, I will redo the Bree video because they have changed so much, even just since, I mean, even if I just zoom in on Bree, can you immediately see the differences? You might be able to. If I just zoom in on that fort there, you might be able to see a difference. So they've changed even since I recorded their video a couple of weeks ago, or however long it was. So I'll redo Bree, but I'm going to push Harad, Rune and Canned back if necessary, so that their overviews are done at a time when we've finished playing around with them. So there will be some slight differences there. Additionally, what I will probably do at the Melvin is going to do a full kind of changelog video for you of changes coming in 2.0, but at the end of the campaign section of this video, remember that the battle half of the map is always written in the comments below. But once we finish with the campaign side, I'll run through some of the major changes that have occurred on the map, just to give you some flavour for that. So let's crack on with Umbar then. So the size of your domain in your initial army. Well, Umbar begin with 4 regions. You've got the 2 Cape of Umbar and Coast of Umbar. It used to be North Haven and South Haven, I think. Haven lands of Umbar. And far to the north you start with the Isle of Tolfalas and the town of Gobel Tolfalas, or the village of. And that is the Tolfalas just up there. So that's what you start with. Now, in terms of troops, you don't get very many at all. You are one of the few nations that does start with ships, and you get the Dulgubalak, which is black ship. The Dulgubalak is the second best ship in the game. The best ship in the game is the Elven, whatever it's called, Numeramar or Palaran. The Elven Palaran, I believe, trumps the Corsair black ship. But ships are such a minor aspect of this game, but we've put like 0 work into them. They've literally just got different names if you play as Umbar. So you start with some ships, but your actual army is very small. So in your capital, you've only got 1 unit of archers. In Ardamir and Khaldun, you've got a couple of units of trash. And similarly, in Gobel Tofalas, you just have trash. You start with a tiny army. So you're not going to be doing too well for some time in terms of military. You're going to need to train. But as you can see, your capital can train some good quality units straight away, because it already has, if I am not mistaken, you've got your town guard built, which gives you a boost, and it gets a couple of units that are AOR and available before the barracks event, even though they're technically after the barracks event units, but we'll cover that. So you've not got a very big army. You're going to need to train one. So then your leader capital, unique bodyguards, yada yada. Your leader is, of course, Haven Master Kusai. Oh, I pressed enter already. And that is what he looks like. That is what your faction leader looks like. If we were to head over here at Aban, that is what a standard Umbarim general looks like. And that is your captain. So that is your captain. Apologies for the jump there. I paused it to have a drink. So, those are your strategy models. Your capital is Umbar. And your bodyguards look at the moment. The diplomats are trained out of the port. And I'm just showing you do get a unique building there, but I'll cover that in a moment. I totally didn't click the wrong thing. Your diplomat trains out of the Black Haven. Now, it should be noted that the Black Haven is actually just the 3rd tier of the port. Or 4th tier, sorry. This tier is only available to Umbar and to Linden. The castle equivalent is available to Dol Amroth as well, but they don't get the city equivalent. So you can train your diplomat out of the Black Haven, and but the reason I mentioned that is because the Black Haven can be destroyed, so your diplomat won't train out of a building that is safe forever, but Umbar barely ever falls, so it doesn't really matter. And diplomats are very, very not used anyway. You don't actually start with any agents, so you'll want to probably train a diplomat straight away. The custom bodyguards then, your faction leader has Naru and Aru Royal Guard. They're very, very powerful, so he is very useful. Aban has Castamir's Rangers, so you can get some early game archery going along. And Councilman Gassan, your faction heir, he has Castamir's Chosen. So you get 3 of your best units right off the bat for each of your bodyguards, which is very, very useful. It should be noted that Umbar is a heavy infantry faction. You are very much an evil Gondor. Your cavalry options are few and far between and very poor, and you are very good at heavy infantry. As I say, exactly the same as Gondor. So, Rebel expansion then. Well, of course, you can try, and it's highly advised, to beat Harad to An Karagmir, because An Karagmir is one of the game's wealthiest provinces, up there with Moria's and somewhere else is super wealthy. I can't remember where. So it's very advisable to try and take that, but otherwise you've got to cross through Harad's lands and either try and beat them to Barad-Han, Amun Ithel, Tir-Thoros, or indeed you can just attack Harad. But in terms of Rebel expansion, your only real neighboured Rebel region is An Karagmir, so that's where you're going to be hoping to go for. So neighbours and diplomacy then, well, you obviously start next to Harad, and they are your only allies, it should be noted. You don't actually start allied to Sauron, and this is kind of a reflection of the potted history of Umbar. I mean, let's not forget that Sauron surrendered to Ar-Pharazôn in this region, in Umbar. They have a long-standing tradition of actually being against him, and they're fighting with him at the moment because they're mostly Haradrim, but they're not allied with him at the start. So it also allows you, I mean, the Umbar campaign is heavily designed to make you backstab Harad. I should just say that now, as we'll get onto that in a moment, but and it gives you a little bit more freedom to do that because you don't actually start allied to Sauron, so he's not going to excommunicate you. Although he probably will, because you do start technically as Catholic. If we go to any town guard, you need 25% Melkor's Shadow, and Melkor's Shadow is the religion Catholicism. So don't read anything into that, but that is so that you can join Crusades. So he might excommunicate you. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a moment. So your actual neighbour is Harad. You start allied with them only, and your enemies with Dol Amroth and Gondor. I'll also cover victory conditions here. Your victory conditions are to hold 40 regions. You need to hold Umbar, Minas Tirith, and Dol Amroth, and kill Gondor and Dol Amroth. So those are your actual victory conditions. They lead you towards your natural enemies. So then, economy and buildings. Well, Umbar aren't restricted. You get every level of castle all the way up to stronghold, and you get every level of town all the way up to city. Large city, sorry. Umbar itself is actually a huge city, which gives you a boost because it's the largest sized city in the game. No one can actually build huge cities, remember. It's locked off for factions' custom cities, such as Minas Tirith, which I don't even think is a huge city. I can't remember. So you're not restricted at all. Your guilds when playing as Umbar are just the Warriors Guild and the Fighters Pit. So the Warriors Guild will give you a melee weapon bonus and morale bonus to troops trained there, and an experience bonus to all troops once you've built the Brotherhood of True Sons, which is a 1 building per nation building. So you can always build this building, but only in one location. The Fighters Pit gives you an experience to troops trained in that region, and then there's a Naru and Aru Fighters Guild, which gives, again, experience bonuses worldwide. So if you get both of those top guilds, you're getting units with 2 experience points right off the bat, which is very, very useful. The guilds, you can get the guilds, it never tells you, which is annoying. I should probably think about adding in how to get them. But most of the guilds are got by building barracks and training troops. Additionally, let me just draw your attention to this building, which is new to almost all of you, and this is the Mason's Hall. The Mason's Hall has 3 tiers. It comes under Master Builders, and you've got a Mason's Hall, then you've got a Master Mason's Hall, and then you've got a Mason's Guild. And yes, the images are courtesy of Anno 1404. And you will need the Mason's Guild House to build a large city. I've even written it in the requirements. So you will need this building. And as you will note, these buildings now have vast building cost reductions, but the town hall no longer has any building cost reductions. The town hall no longer makes your buildings cheaper. It also no longer gives as much bonus to law. It's now 5, 10, 15 and 20 rather than 20, 40, 60 and 80% bonuses. So hopefully there'll be a bit more squalor knocking around. As Umbar, you train the Fort Town Guardhouse and you get the Fort Archers, not the Orc invasion troops. That's another point to note. Of course, you are going to have an easy time getting money because you're in a very safe location and Ankaragmir is on your doorstep. And it should be very easy to beat Harad to that. They almost never prioritise it. They almost always go north. So you should be able to rush to it. Now, scripts. Now, this isn't really a script. There's no actual scripting involved at all. But Umbar have the enslavement script. We call it a script, but don't worry about that. They have the enslavement script. Now, what this does is if you're playing as Umbar, you have the ability to enslave everyone around you and get them to fight for you. Now, as I've already mentioned, and as you'll see in the second half, Umbar don't really get any cavalry, save for a new unit that's been added. So the enslavement script's main purpose is to give you your cavalry battalions. And it works for everyone around you. And I'll give you an exhaustive list. So you can enslave Harad by building your camp in any of Harad's regions. You can enslave Khand by building your camp in Khandish regions. You can enslave Gondor and Dol Amroth. You can enslave Rohan, and you can enslave Ened Wyth, and that is it. So all of those regions can be enslaved, and you can train their troops, but you do have to enslave them. There's no alliance version. So as you'll see with the Harad and Rune and Mordor, if you're allied to Khand, you can build a building that lets you train Khandish troops, or you can attack Khand and build the building in their region, and it's better, but it makes your towns not like you as much. Whereas Umbar, there's no alliance alternative. Your only choice is to conquer these places and enslave their peoples. And that is the main aim, really, of the Umbarim campaign. You want to take everyone down, because A, then the campaign is fun, because without it, it's so easy, as we'll cover in a second. But also it allows you to then train your much needed cavalry and supplement your quite expensive elite units. I mean, that's 500 upkeep on your Naru Royals. There's 520 on your archers. Your units are middlingly or averagely expensive, though they are kind of evil men cheap. But your later game units are more expensive. But you can supplement some of your later game units with some of the cheaper units of Khand Harad. Now, you can't enslave every single unit, of course, but you can enslave quite a large chunk of them. Oh, Ostithil falls to Gondor in the turn 1 auto. Sorry. Other than that, there aren't any scripts that actually affect Umbar. Of course, Umbar do the invasion script, but you don't actually have anything to do with that when you play as Umbar. There's nothing going on with that. And garrisons, you'll get a garrison in Khaldun, Ardamir, Umbar. I think Golbel Tolfalas as well. But outside of that, you will then also get a garrison in all of Harad, Khand, and Rune's lands, because you four are the same in file culture. And your culture is Middle Eastern. Your religion is Catholicism, but obviously religion in game is called culture. So it creates such a horrific confusion when I talk about it. This culture is religion. And what decides what your towns look like is file culture. And so you share that with these four next to you. So you'd get garrisons in all of the desert and eastlands, but you won't get them anywhere else except for the rebel regions. If you upgrade them by 1 tier, you'll get a garrison there. So, key map changes that have affected Umbar, none really. I mean, you can see that the Haradrim borders have been sort of edited a bit around Ankaragmir, and they now have that much thinner line. Oh, and of course, no, there is one massive change that you will come across as Umbar, and that is the widening of the Harnan, which is this river just here. Harnan, if you're wondering, literally just means south water. And this river has been widened, as you can see, and you can now sail all the way from the mouths of the Harnan right up to Amrune, where you get this really cool double river crossing with a fort. I like this a lot. The crossings on the river, if I am not mistaken, are now 3. There is one about where this port is, there is one just to the left of Finabel, and there is one just to the right of Ramlond, if I remember rightly. We don't have a spy, do we, which is annoying. Let me actually just show you. So if we move Kusai to... Oh, balls, I didn't... Oh, sorry. Need to show the cursor stat first. Cursor stat. Move character Kusai, because I can't actually remember myself. And the easiest way for me to show you where they are is actually just by literally showing you where they are. So, oh, it's the other way around, isn't it? Character, reset. Oh, this is so annoying. I'm under pressure. Character reset, Kusai. There we are. So there's one right next to Ramlond. And then if we move him down here, then there's one right next to Finabel. And then if we move him further along... I pressed the wrong button. Then the other crossing is those two there. Yeah, I did think 3 was too much. So you can cross right at the end, you can cross next to Finabel, and you can cross next to Ramlond, and that's it. So it's a little harder now getting into the southern regions, which gives you a huge defensive boost against the nations of Dol Amroth and Gondor. And those are, I believe, the main map changes. They've got those 3 forts there. I believe they were already there. There's the fort in Gobel Tofalas, which I believe is also already there. Gobel Tofalas, I don't think... you cannot upgrade to a city. So you can go up to a town and a large town, but you can't get a city here. So there's a restriction on Gobel Tofalas in the coming versions. Right, so tips and difficulty before I cover major modding changes in this little section. Umbar is very easy if you don't backstab the people around you, because no one attacks you. You're protected by Harad, and Harad don't attack you because you start allied, and Dol Amroth and Gondor won't sail to fight you, because you're too far away. Why would they bother? Excuse me, sorry. Drinking like 4-day-old sugar water, basically. Oh dear. Should have gone and got a drink properly. So, if you stay allied to the evil nations, the campaign is a doddle. One of the easiest, hands down. There's no challenge whatsoever. You just stay in Umbar, get some money, then build a massive fleet, sail to Dol Amroth, end the game. Simple, simple, simple. However, if you do decide to attack Harad, then the game becomes incredibly good fun. I personally recommend you attack Harad immediately, because if you wait until you're really powerful, again, all the challenge is gone. But that is up to yourself. But once you do attack Harad, it is almost certain that Sauron will excommunicate you, and then almost certain that they will call an invasion on Umbar. And they will want to get it as much as possible, because it is such a wealthy city. Umbar, because it's a huge city at game start and has quite a good amount of infrastructure built already, you can make some real money there. And the AI will go for it. They will really, really want it. Do know as well that if you attack Harad, Khand will also then attack you. They tend to join Harad quite often. So then the game becomes quite fun as you slog your way north. Additionally, and a little aside to this, is if you attack Harad and then Khand as well, Gondor then can easily deal with Mordor, and it means that you don't have to worry about invasions from Mordor as much because Gondor are keeping them busy, and it's very useful. Very, very useful indeed. So it's very easy if you don't attack the bad nations, and it's a really fun campaign if you do. Those are the recommendeds for Umbar. Right, so if you're not interested in the changes, then click on the link below in the description and you can go ahead to the battle map side. However, if you want to know what's happened very recently, not to step on Melv's toes, but just to give you a rough overview, I'll go through some major changes now. So, if you're in the future, if you're going to play as Harad, you will start with the town of Finabel only. Everything else will be Rebel. If you are going to play as Rune, you will start with the town of Mistrand only, and everything else will be Rebel, and you will need to go about and conquer it. I'm not going to go into massive detail because that's what the overview videos are going to be for, but do note that this is what the runic AI now starts the game with. They have lost Rubar, they've lost Lest, they have lost Berdem and Arrakis, and they've lost Kurvasarg and Varfest. Additionally, though, the ports have been returned. So Lest now has a port again, and as does Wintirian Eor and Elgar. So there are some new bits and bobs there. One of the major things that some of you might have seen is this has so far only been literally, as I have said, really arbitrarily applied, and it will require a lot of testing. That's why version 2 is quite a way away. But you might have noticed that almost all of the garrisons have basically been tripled in size. Eastern Osgiliath has been given a huge garrison to make Mordor and Gondor have a little fun, but they'll probably just go through Caer Andros now. No one will ever take it. That's the problem. The AI hates garrisons so much. It always goes for the easiest target. And so if a rebel garrison is huge, like Eastern Osgiliath, despite the tactical use of that town, neither of them will take it because they can go through Caer Andros, which has one unit in its garrison. But the garrisons across the map basically have all been expanded upon. And this is to attempt the AI to just be a bit slower, it's not going to slow the game down massively, but at the minute you can normally win the game by the turn 100, 150 mark. Whereas in the base game it would take normally upward of 300 turns to win the game, so we're just trying to slow it down a bit, nothing major. But the garrisons have been improved. The only place where the garrisons are a bit different are in the north. So the Angmarin player, who gets Athelin and Angsul anyway, the garrison in Gobadrine is now quite small, so that Angmar gets a little bit more time to build up, because they just have so many enemies. Additionally, as you can see, the Fueros garrison has been made very small, again, to allow Angmar just to get the strength in that north before their AI nations get underway and start absolutely annihilating them. Another place where the garrison is a bit different, although I realise now that that's entirely unnecessary, is Witherboard. The garrison in Witherboard is really big, it's almost full, and that is an attempt to slow down the dwarves, but I've just realised for using this video that the dwarves get Witherboard at turn 1 anyway, so it made no difference whatsoever. I'm trying to make the dwarves go east rather than west, because otherwise, even with the changes we've added to Rune, they'll still beat Dorwinion 9 out of 10 times. So I'm trying to just change things up, just ever so slightly. But it's not really worked. Another key change of late has been the removal of Dunharrow, and in its place there is now a fort. Now that fort is the map of Dunharrow in exactly the same way we've done Amun Sul. We can't have alternative campaign strategy models for forts, although I am looking into it and it might be possible. But that fort is currently Dunharrow. And it fights as the Dunharrow map, which is very cool. And the region that was Dunharrow now is here. It's called Heoritskir. And I would love if someone would be able to... Oh, you'll just type it into Google, which is a shame. This is the town of Heorot, and this is the region of Heoritskir. Now, this is actually Old English, and I have added that for one key reason. Not the region, but the region names. But this new region has been added, and it is Rebel at the start, so it gives Dunland and Enadwythe a little bit more time before they get to one another. Now, the sharp-eyed amongst you will also have noted the CSM changes. I'm not sure if I'm meant to show these off yet or not. I can't really remember. Am I totally removing all the content of Mel's video if I show them off? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Screw it. I'll show you anyway. The Elite Dwarf has made some key changes. So Bree now has these nice red-roofed pattern in their towns. The vanilla Northman fort now looks like that. There's a better one there, not in the forest, which is very, very cool. The Hobbit villages have since been changed. They no longer have 3 hills. They just have 2 little towns next to them. Excuse me. This is a Bree town, again with the red buildings. Bree have completely unique towns, just used for them. Additionally, there are new castles. So if we come to Framsberg, the Wildmen now can build castles, the middle tier of Keep Castle Stronghold, and this is what it looks like. So that is a Wildmen castle. It also has one of the battle maps that we were allowed to use from Europa Barbarum 2, and it fits very well with what that model is, because the battle map is basically a massive hill. And that's all the model suggests it is as well. However, their keep has also been edited. So Dwinberg now, that is a Wildmen keep. They no longer share the Northmen model. But speaking of the Northmen, they too have been edited. And this is now what a Northman stronghold looks like. Very, very cool. It's basically just a smaller version of the original with grittier textures and a bit more removal from medieval themed. And this is what a Northmen castle now looks like. So very similar to the stronghold, except wooden rather than stone. I don't think there is a Northmen... Ah, there you are. And that is what a Northmen keep looks like. So all very, very cool changes there. I'm sure there was one other thing I was going to show you. I can't remember. So those are the CSM changes. One of the changes that I'm particularly pleased with are 2 remaining things to talk about. One is I have managed to make it so that if 2 armies attack the Hornburg, both of them now spawn in front of the castle, rather than one behind on the mountain, which is very, very good. I'm very pleased with this. I tested it and it does indeed work. So no longer we have anyone behind the mountain that doesn't work. So if you know of any regions, if you know of any other towns where if you attack with 2 armies and you control both armies, that's key. The AI needs to control one of the armies, otherwise it won't have any effect anyway. But if you know of any other towns where your reinforcing army spawns behind it in an impassable area, then let me know and I can get into it. Now, the other change, forgive me, I haven't yet updated my Dropbox build, so this looks a bit rubbish, basically. But it's since been edited by Elite Dwarf and it all fits up nicely. But we've made 2 gaps between the 2 Khazad-dûms now. There are 2 tiles between them, no longer 1 tile between them. So, and there is a custom battle map on those 2 tiles that is the Dwarf. It is a battle map that is literally just the Hall of Pillars that you all know from the movie. So very, very cool indeed. If you happen to fight in between them, but it's so rare you'll ever fight in between those 2 that they almost never come up. In the same way that something that dawned on me the other day, the Eastern or the Middle Eastern fort, this one. If you play it on the battle map, half of the fort has black textures, as if a shadow covers half of the fort, and yet no one has yet reported that because I don't think a single person has fought in the Middle Eastern fort since we added them. So it's just flying very much under the radar. I think I've already shown you, but there's now what an orc castle looks like. The orc towns were also changed, and so there we are. I should also have mentioned the Q&A, and I've probably got most of your attention at the moment. We've reached 20,000 subscribers. So please post a Q&A : your questions, and I will get around to answering them for the Q&A video that will be the end of this run. So that's coming, and I need your questions. I'm also about to mention that again immediately on the battle map side for those that skipped straight to it, so I apologise for that. But I'll see you on the battle side. Welcome to the battle map side. Now, very briefly, just before we get into it, we've just reached 20,000 subscribers, as I've just literally said for those of you that watch the modding changes, and I am doing a question and answer video in light of that, but I will need your questions and so to answer. So what I need is from you is if you have a question for the video, do Q&A, which is the and symbol, and then write your question. I would ask that you try not to ask questions related to the mod, because I answer them all the time. And in the videos that have so far been posted, almost every single question has been mod related. Now, I have taken some of those out, but it's more general. It's meant to be a more like, what would you like to know more about me personally, rather than what's going to happen in DaC. There's 1,000,001 modding questions, so I think I might very well do some form of live question and answer session for Divide and Conquer. Maybe get Racer and the Elite Dwarf involved. Hummingbird never goes on microphone. But we'll look into doing something like that, because there's 1,000,000 DaC questions. But try and ask questions that are not related to DaC and are more related to me as a person, as a YouTuber. So pop your questions down below, and that video will come up later. So on to Umbar's units then. Well, as you can see, ever since about 3 days ago, they didn't even have cavalry, but still, they are no cavalry, really. You are a massive infantry nation with a couple of support units from archers. Ah, look, they don't have a sprite, which is why you can currently see them moving around. Like really, really obviously moving around. That means they don't have a sprite. I should edit that. I have to look at the sprites. Sprites are so boring. I always put it off because it's easy, but easily the dullest modding job there is going. But anyway, so you're a heavy infantry nation. Now, discount these 3 over there. I've put them in purely to show you some visual changes. And to show off Hummingbird's work, because he deserves great plaudits. Laudit. So, on to Umbar then. I believe that the Cav unit is the only brand new unit from version 0.52. I'm pretty sure the Blackguards went out in 0.52, but even if they didn't, we'll still look at them. So, Umbar are split. Before the barracks event, you've got a line of 4 militia, the Corsairs themselves. We can give them their own group if you like. Then you've got your sort of more able-bodied men in the line just behind. And then you've got elites, and then you've got uber elites with pitchforks. There's your general, and of course cavalry and the uber elite top line. So beginning where we do as ever with the militia, here are the Corsair Raiders. Now Corsairs might look quite cool, and they do. They all look pretty sweet, but they're awful. I mean, Umbar follows a similar sort of pattern to Harad in that they have high aggression in their sort of early units, but it becomes more defensive in the later units where they break away from the Haradrim influence. But the Raiders have that Harad style. So their defense is awful, and it's defense skill, which means their archers will shred them. But their attack is 4, which isn't too bad. And there's the rest of their stats. Now, they can only be recruited on a region that borders the coast. So do bear that in mind as well. You only get your militia in coastal regions. Now, one of the most useful units for Umbar throughout the entire game are the Corsair Pikemen, because they're pikemen, and there's 200 of them. They will do a lot of damage if left unchecked. Now, again, they require a coastal region. There's their stats just there. Their attack's low because they're pikes. Their defense is still 3. So, again, arrows will annihilate them. But otherwise, they are a real pain to bring down. And while they've got the enemy tied up, that's when you charge these buggers in. The Corsair Savages are very, very aggressive for a militia tier unit, and they have an 8 attack, a 6 charge, and their defense is 7. Defense skill entirely, though. So again, arrows will annihilate them. They're also effective against armor, and they frighten nearby infantry, so they are really quite good. But again, they require a coastal region. So again, they're locked out. A lot of these units do have armor upgrades, visual changes. The Corsairs, for example, do get a little bit of a jacket if you upgrade their armor. So, something as well, just very briefly to touch on, which isn't really mentioned enough, is that if you take a unit from 0 armor up to 1 armor, in the calculations that the game will then do, that is actually the equivalent of giving it an extra 4 armor stats. 4. I'm not joking. It changes. Although what you see is 0 to 1, the change in the calculations for when it's being attacked is essentially 0 to 4. It's a huge change going from no armor to armor. So that's just something to watch out for. It doesn't mean that they're going to have, for example, the calculation is very, very peculiar, and I couldn't even begin to guess it. I just know that that is the equivalent of a 4 change. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be, say, Corsair Raiders with 2 are not going to be worse. It's a tricky one to how it actually works, but just note that it's not actually a straight +1 bonus. It's better than you think. But supporting you at the militia tier are the Corsair Archers. Corsair Archers, again, not all that great, but the 2 missile and the fact that there's quite a few of them and they can hide anywhere means that they are not to be underestimated. In my last video, I told about how Snagga are actually quite useful if you just leave them to it, because there's so many of them, and even though they only do 1 damage, that's still quite good. And somebody disagreed, and they said, no, Snagga are absolutely useful, because all the enemy would need is 1 armor skill, and every arrow is negated. But it doesn't work like that. It's not, as I thought it did, but it does not. So if a unit has 2 armor, that doesn't mean that another unit will not damage it unless it does more than 3 attack. It's a very complicated little calculation. And it does mean that arrows are almost always useful. There's always a chance they will do something. Now, granted, a Snagga is not going to do any damage to, like, the Linden bodyguard unit. You could probably fire every arrow at them and not take them down, because the gulf in difference is just too vast. But they can do a lot of damage against just massed, nothing-y kind of units. So, anyway, Corsair Archers are very similar. So then after your archers and the first sort of barracks level that you're going to get, the first ones to come are the Corsair Warriors. Now these are also locked to coastal regions, but these are, as you can see, much, much sturdier. They have a similar sort of attack and charge to the Corsair Raiders, but their armor value is higher, and their entire defense is, 4 times better? Just shy of 4 times better. So very, 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 very strong unit. They also get a visual upgrade, as you can see. They changed it like that. They used to have those seashell shields. Oh dear. Did I say that right? Seashell shields? Anyway, they used to have those as shields, but they no longer do because they looked a bit too... They are based on a design that Tolkien himself actually drew, and they get like a seashell helmet. But it just looks way too wacky for the aesthetic that we've gone for in the end. So Corsair Raiders, Corsair Warriors are a sort of aggressive, sort of mainline. Because whilst they're going to be attacking on the flanks and whatnot, the Belagyar footmen are going to be doing most of the holding work. They have a high defense of 13 for their tier. Oh, and it's not really that high. For the nation, they have a good defense. Their attack's quite low, though, but they're spearmen. They all just hold the line. Now, they are not restricted, and they start getting better morale down here, as you can see. They aren't restricted, so you can start training these anywhere. If you're wondering, Belagyar means Great Ocean and is the name of the ocean that is to the west of Middle-earth. The Belagyar, the Great Ocean. But also supporting them, and as I say, I'm not sure if these are new or not. I'm going to go on the basis that they aren't, but I'll give you the stat breakdown anyway. Are the Corsair Black Guards. These are javelin-wielding, aggressive units. As you can see, their defense is about the same as the 2 units next to them, but their attack is 11. Their missile is 10, and they get a bonus against mounts with the javelin. They do require a coastal region again. Anything with Corsair in the name is locked to the coasts. But these are essentially the elite ship troops, the ones that would be on the boats, boarding other boats, bringing them down. And these are just really good. Now, the effective against mounts is only applied to... No, unfortunately, side effect. I think I've covered this before. They're effective against mounts because a javelin is quite a useful tool against a cavalry and against an elephant. But it does, unfortunately, also affect their melee weapons. So they have an unintentional bonus against cavalry despite not having a spear. So do just bear that in mind. But they're just good units. They are really good. They're quite expensive, though. 960. That recruitment cost is accurate. That is their recruitment cost in the campaign as well as this side. You can't see their upkeep, though, unfortunately. Their morale response is impetuous, but the morale is good. So they deal well with shocks, but their overall morale isn't outstanding. So supporting them as well are archers. Belagar archers, to be precise. And these do get these visual changes. As you can see, the gentleman that came along and redid almost all of our unit cards, he favoured having the unit card showing what the unit looks like in its final stage rather than its initial stage. So that is why they look totally different at the moment. But once you upgrade them, they look like their unit card. And upgrade them at a blacksmith if you don't know how to do that. Belagar archers are just solid, dependable archers. 3 missile, 8 defense. I mean, they're not going to win any awards, but they will at least damage the enemy better than the archers beneath them. So that's your pre-barracks event choices. Now, it should also be noted that, once again, there are some units that come in before the barracks event, despite being at a later tier. And what I'm going to do from this episode onward, if I've done it differently before, I apologise. But I will put the unit where they come stat-wise rather than where they come training-wise, because I think that is better. Because then if you do train them, you'll know it's not a bug, it's just a bonus. So we'll come on. There's a couple of units that I will talk of that have this feature. So after the barracks event, then the first units you're going to come across, and units you really are going to want to train, because my god are they useful, are the Abrazanim Narduzagar and the Abrazanim Nardutarik. Now this is all Adonaic, which is the language of essentially the black Numenorians. The faithful Numenorians tended to speak Quenya or Sindarin, or Westron. But Adonaic is the language of Numenor, and Abrazanim Narduzagar and Nardutarik are black speech words. I do not speak black speech, and these were provided by someone else. But I'm pretty sure somewhere it tells you what it means. The name translates as Faithful Tower Soldiers. There you go. Anyway, so these are the first units you're going to get after the barracks event, and they are very good. And they look sweet when they are upgraded. They get an awesome mask. I absolutely love it. They look very Mongolian, but because of the dark tone, they don't look Mongolian, if you get what I mean. These are really powerful shield units. They've got a solid shield stat of 5. They are effective against armor because they've got a sort of mace club thing. Their attack isn't actually all that great, but their defense is 20. They are really dependable at just holding, not dying. They won't kill that many people. Well, I mean, they will because their armor effective against armor. They're just so good. They're one of the things I love about Umbar. I love Umbar. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really like playing as Umbar. They're so fun if you attack everyone. And the Nardutarik are a big reason for that. I just love them. Everything about them, from their simple yet powerful shield to their upgrade, and they're effective against armor. They're such a beastly unit, very useful to have. And they are supported by a very good strike unit, the Narduzagar. Now, Narduzagar, again, it will tell you, means faithful sword soldiers. So Abrazanim means faithful, because they consider themselves faithful, of course, and they consider the others to be traitors, and the others the other way around. Now, the only thing you'll note with these is that their morale isn't really all that great. Despite their stats being very good, their morale is still very average. So they will run away. Don't have any illusions. Umbar aren't some to-the-death nation. They're black Numenorians. They're sneaky. They're tricksy. But they'll run away if the tide goes against them. But these gentlemen aren't effective against armor, but their attack is 14. They've got a lower defense, as all strike units do, so you can't keep them in prolonged melee all that well, because they will take more hits than their brothers next to them. But they will do so much damage, just raw damage. Now, of course, a very heavily armoured enemy, like the Dwarves or the Gondori in late game, will be better placed to deal with these gentlemen, because they're not effective against armour. But that doesn't mean their high damage isn't going to do something, and it will. So, very, very useful. Supporting them are the Abrazanim Nardubawib, which is faithful archers or something. Faithful wind soldiers, because archers isn't a word in black speech, because it's a very unfleshed out language. Oh, I keep calling it black speech. It's not, is it? It's Adonaic, sorry. The Nabadubawib are just very good archers. Again, they're twice as good in both aggression stats than the unit before the barracks event. So a big jump up when you come up to the Abrazanim. Their defense, again, all archers have quite a low defense. Mostly from the mentality, it's tried to reflect the fact that archers go to battle. Most archers that we've gone with in the game tend to go to battle thinking that they're not going to get involved much in the fighting. They shoot their arrows and then they wait for the melee to finish them off. And that's kind of reflected in all their lower stats. As you can see, their quiver is to their side rather than on their back, because on their back they have cool shields. And I can't remember if they switch to the shields or not when they actually fight. I think they do, because they have a shield stat. So, now, Castamir's Rangers are available before the barracks event. That should be noted. You can get them before the barracks event. They require a woodland or a desert region. And you can get them, as I say, before the barracks event, despite their stats being more akin to this tier. One of your generals starts with Castamir's Rangers. They are just Rangers, and as with all Ranger units, they have a very high range, very good accuracy, more missiles than anyone else, and they can hide anywhere. This is a trait of all human Rangers. Indeed, even the stats tend to be the same for all human Rangers, but the Umbarim Rangers have a slightly higher melee than most of their brothers. Their defense, as always, is poor. Rangers have terrible defense, but they can hide anywhere. They're some of the best archers, but they're not that great in melee, and they don't do well if other units shoot back at them. They are not fond of being shot at. They are quite poor, in fact, because they have very low armor normally for the tier that they tend to be stat-wise in their aggression. But their armor is quite poor. And they don't have a shield, and their defense skill isn't used when you're shot with arrows. So quite poor indeed. So then that brings you on to your final and your late game units. Well, we'll start with Castamir's Chosen because they look sweet. Castamir's Chosen are very cool. I mean, just look at them. How can you not think that unit looks good? It's a perfect blending of that like Gondorian plate style that we all like from the movies and that kind of Middle Eastern vibe that the south regions of Middle Earth have. And they just look so good. The black and red, man. I love the black and red. Castamir's Chosen are just dependable line troops. They've got a good defense, a good attack. Nothing really amazing about them. But they are considered like the elite Corsairs. So, as I said, any unit with Corsairs coastal only. But these are also coastal only. And so they're a little restricted. So then we come on to the Naru and Aru Royal Guard. Now, the Naru and Aru are very, very good, dependable line troops. Once again, the highest defense you'll find in your mainline troops. Very, very dependable. A 12 attack, which is good for a spear unit. They will hold. They're not that great aggressively, because spears, as another little interesting mod fact for you, spears are actually worse against units, against infantry, than they are against cavalry. So if you give a unit a huge cavalry bonus, you are also giving it a huge infantry detriment. So they will do very good damage. So every spear unit, basically, will do less attack damage to infantry, but more to cavalry. That won't affect how the infantry attacks them, which is why they hold the line so well, because they tend to always have higher defense stats. But they won't actually do that much damage to other infantry. That's something you should also note. But the Naru and Aru inspire nearby troops. They can make a shield wall. They frighten other enemy troops. They have a locked morale, which is excellent anyway. But they do require the Cape of Umbar, which is the 3 regions that you start with in Umbar, and the capitals of the Pretenders, which is Dol Amroth and Minas Tirith. So you can get them in Dol Amroth, Minas Tirith, and the 3 regions of Umbar. And they're very cool, very powerful. They are supported by the Naru and Aru Royal Archers, which are just a late game archer. They use the steel bow. This was another thing. Someone asked me, someone has been going on a big crusade to get Umbar to be changed. And actually now I feel foolish because his main request was give Umbar cavalry, and Hummingbird has. Curse you, Hummingbird. I like telling people no. But his other big request was that the Naru and Aru should definitely have steel bows, and I was kind of scratching my head because they do have steel bows, as you can quite clearly see. I believe it even references the steel bows in their description. Possibly not. Can't remember if I changed it. But anyway, they're just excellent archers. Missile 7, melee 10, total defense 24. Excellent. Note that these do not have locked morale. They will run away. But otherwise the same regions as the other Naru and Arus. And this is the Umbarim unit that can place stakes. Of course, many of you will know that stakes have been massively addressed rather. and they've been removed from almost all units, and now almost every faction has one stake unit, and the Royal Archers are Umbars, denoting the fact that they defend Umbar, basically. They defend a key location, so they put the time in to put the stakes down. Now, the 2 Naru and Aru units are also available before the barracks event, but like you get maybe a unit of each from each town at most. Oh no, only from Umbar. So from Umbar, you can get these 2 guys before the barracks event, but in a terribly slow replenishment. I think it literally is 1 every 50 turns. And given that the barracks event kicks in at turn 64, that's basically 1 unit of them each before the barracks event. So you get to at least play with them. And we tend to always do that with like uber elite units, just so that, because normally the game tends to be over by the time you can properly train them. So we give you just a little taste of what's to come in the earlier game. Now, the brand new unit are the unlocalized placement text. It's a catchy name that we've settled on, and they have the horse that you'll note that the Nazgul ride, the Black Numenorians of Gondor, which means that there are certain units in the game that have a benefit against them, especially. Mostly Elven units, though, so you won't come up against them. But this unit is so new that not only do they not even have a name, they don't even have a text entry yet, which is what this means. This means that the files can't find their text entry in the text folders, so it gives you this title. They have the same look as the bodyguards, as we'll see in just a moment. They have blonde hair on the odd person. There's also some pretty cool wing texture on the edge of the helmets, which I didn't notice. And you'll note that this armor is the often used armor. The Orthanc Guard have it. The Angmarim elite units have it. The Morgul Chosen of Mordor have it. It's an often used armor, but they're just very good cavalry. They get a bonus against other mounts, which is what Hummingbird wanted them to mostly do. They frighten nearby enemy infantry as well. So they are Umbar's answer to Dol Amroth's late game Cav, in that they are anti-Cav Cav. They are just as rare as the other Naru and Aru. They'll be called something like Naru and Aru Royal Cavalry, probably. They will likely have not locked morale, but they will have high morale, all those kind of things. And they will be really rare again. They'll be really very rare. Umbar are not a cavalry nation, and this is literally just your best unit has got on a horse to try and help you against Dol Amroth's superior Cav. But they look pretty cool, don't they? They look pretty damn good. So that's the Royal Cav. And finally, your bodyguard unit are the Naru and Aru Household Guard. Note the sort of pause in with the apostrophe brings. It's not Naru Naru. It's not Naru Naru. It's Naru and Aru. It takes great skill to learn how to not speak in the middle of a word. No, I'm joking. But it's not Naru Naru. So Naru Naru is fully incorrect. The apostrophe denotes a break in this regard. Anyway, that's irrelevant. It might not. It could be Naru Naru, but I'm pretty sure it's Naru and Aru. Anywho, this is your bodyguard unit. They are just a better version of the Royal Guard. Where are the Royal Guard? They are there. So they have a 12 attack, 33 defense. Your bodyguard has a 32 attack, 32 defense, but a 14 attack. So slightly more aggressive, but slightly less defensive. Bonus against mounts, frightened nearby enemy infantry. All Umbar units get a bonus in deserts. I forgot to mention that, didn't I? Although it does say it in the thing. So your bonuses for Umbar come from fighting in deserts only. You don't get a negative for fighting elsewhere, other than snow. So in grassland and in woodland, you're not affected at all. But if anyone ever fights you in deserts, you get a bonus. And if you ever fight in mountains, you get a negative. So that's the core lineup of Umbar. And then this is a little nod. As you might have seen, these are the Territorial Guardsmen, the Gondor Militia, and the Archer Militia. Now, the Gondor Cavalry Militia is also affected, but I couldn't fit another unit in. We're at the unit cap. And they just look like the militia on a horse. This is the Umbarim version of the 4 Gondor Militia if you enslave Gondor and upgrade their armor. You have to upgrade their armor at a blacksmith or they don't change. So this is the final tier of their armor. As you can see, they've all got gold armor. And this is what they look like. So these are the Archer Militia of Umbar when you enslave Gondor and get them to fight with you. They just have a darker tone. Red and black is used. Wait till we get to the Territorial Guardsmen. They look awesome. These are the Gondor Militia, exactly the same as the Archers, but they have a sword and a shield. Likewise, the Cavalry just look exactly like this, but they have a horse. And then finally, the Territorial Guardsmen look awesome. There's the Umbarim Territorial Guardsmen. And they have a symbol denoting Umbar. They have, again, red and black on the shields, and their tabards go to the darker grey, and they just look so cool. They even get their own unique Umbar flag. How cool is that? Hummingbird has thought of everything. Although I need to edit their sprites, because as you can see, they change from happy light brown colours to crimson and grey. So much sprite work needs to be done, but I loathe it with burning passion. And there's the officers there. Something also just to show you the actual officers. This is your standard officer. He's one of the household guard. Your banner carrier is a unfortunately very pirate-looking gentleman with a simple black and red Umbar flag. The symbol denoted on the flag is the Tengwa letter for B. But your actual captain looks really cool. He used to look like a pirate with a proper pirate's hat and everything. I can't remember what it's called. A try something. Tri-core. I can't remember what they're called. The hat with the 3 points. But now he looks like that, which is much cooler. It's like an Abrazanum unit without any helmet and a black cape. So he's quite easy to find on the battlefield. That's your captain. Your actual general looks very cool as well, but you'd have to play on the campaign to see what he looks like. So, as ever, we'll just line them all up, give them over to the AI, and it'll allow you to just see them all fighting something. And today's enemy of choice, because they will be in next week's episode, are Linden. Now, I'm no qualms with Linden being next, because nothing is changing about Linden. In fact, the last faction overview is arguably still completely 100% relevant. The only differences to Linden from 0.5 to now are that their units have different visuals. Noted straight away as we saw their bodyguard now looks like that, and there's some other unique visuals. Oh, that was really, really well hit. I'm not sure where this new projectile has come from. Probably me adding in the mangonel shot. But I quite like that it now has a far more visible black trail behind the... Oh, our cavalry's about to charge their cavalry. See, the smoke trail, I think, is far better now than it was. Our cavalry charges the Linden cavalry. They've not put their spears down. Oh, you idiots. You totally wasted that. Oh, look, there you go. They do change to a sword when they get into battle, so they'll have a secondary attack, which wasn't noted because, as I say, they haven't got a text entry yet. And another shot goes off in the background. Fortunately, falls short. Whilst these gentlemen have a bonus against other cav, these Eldarinway Lancers are probably going to ruin them. Because Eldarinway are just gods on horses. Eldarinway are just gods. They are such good units. Oh, the Castamers chosen appear to be hiding behind the narrow. Oh, and look, they're hiding in front as well. I'm not doing a good job of hiding there, lads. You might want to stand up. Castamir's hiding there. He's like, if we stay crouched, they'll never notice us behind these narrow. Linden's forces hit us. There's Mithlon nobles. We're currently throwing around some Imladris changes, some ideas for Imladris, which might then call for another Imladris overview. We've spitballed something. Basically, we are trying to ensure that every faction just has something. And unfortunately for Linden, we've really no idea. Linden and Ered Luin's thing is likely just to be that Umbar's invasion script will be expanded to attack Linden. I mean, at the minute we have nothing. But Imladris, we've thrown an idea around. It's got reasonable support thus far. We've just got to work out some kinks. But at the moment, we're still focusing on Rune and Harad, getting their changes done. Then we'll move on to Canned. Then we'll look at jazzing up. And then, of course, the final thing for 2.0 that we hope is the Reunited Kingdom. But that really is the final thing. I mean, that may even be version after version 2. Because so much work has already gone into version 2. And we've yet to get much other than the odd bug report for like things where files we've missed or we haven't edited them properly. We've yet to get serious feedback related to Rune or Harad because the changes have only just gone in, so it's a long process. We don't just do these things on a whim, release it and hope it'll be all right. Much like, as I said, when you saw that I'd edited all those rebel garrisons, that is massively subject to change. Massively subject. At the moment, I've just gone with a flat increase just to see how the AI handles it, just so that we can get a feel for what we're going to need. But there'll be so much testing. But I am keen to slow the game down, and having larger rebel garrisons seems to be the way. Because I can't, I don't know if I mentioned this in a video, I can't turn the rebels on. I was talking at length about wanting to turn the rebels on so that they actually do things. But the only way to turn them on is to basically have the entire rebel nation, as in every rebel region in the game, would basically act as a single faction, and it would just mean that you'd be able to annihilate them because they would have too many enemies. Oh, crippling shot. Our general's gone down. We can end the episode. So that is Umbar, a very cool faction. One of my favourites again. I absolutely love them. They're my go-to evil nation if I ever play as evil, I have to admit. And they're really fun to play. Next week's episode will, of course, be Linden. And stay tuned this week for a Fëanor lore video, which is heavily intertwined with Melkor's events in Valinor. And then the question and answer video sometime. So until we speak again, dear friends, Navard, Naden, Penimad, Melonin, and farewell.